Hi, everybody. Andrew Champagne here alongside JD Fox for episode 3 of Champagne and JD. It's been a pretty eventful week here in horse racing. Gulfstream Park had the Florida Derby card on Saturday, big mandatory payout. We each had some stuff that was right in our Rainbow Six tickets, but unfortunately couldn't connect on the big jackpot. However, social paranoia did make things a pretty good day for me. And JD, I know you had a couple of scores on Saturday too.
Yeah, I was wrong, and you were 100% right in the Florida Derby. I want to just give you a hats off there, as I tried to make it much more complicated. I think the best 3-year-old in the country won, as you've been telling me for weeks now. So I'm eating crow. Not, I had that course on my ticket, but I just thought it was not going to be that much of a blowout. But big news today. We're recording on Thursday, and Golden Gate Fields, again, with very limited notice, was forced to cancel their card and shut down because of the health board, which is a similar fate to what we saw at Cal Expo the other night. So for the moment, California horse racing is at a standstill. Obviously, we're thinking about the horsemen because how horse racing has to work is the backside workers need to continue to care for and feed the horses, and the owners need to make money to buy feed and to take care of those workers. So right now, the backside still has to operate like the backside operates, but without funds. I think it's kind of a sad day that it's taken the health department to step in. And if you've been much of a social media lurker, there might be some people reporting things to the health department that may not 100% factually be accurate.
I'm not much of a political person. I generally think every politician is crazy until proven otherwise, and I am rarely wrong. Someone tweeted this, and I forget who it was. It might have been Art Wilson, now that I come to think of it. He was talking with someone who helps run the LA Arboretum, which is directly across the street from Santa Anita Park in Arcadia. The LA Arboretum is allowed to house about 1,300 people right now. Santa Anita Park is not allowed to run. Art Wilson says, "What's going on here?" The guy at the Arboretum says, I don't know. He goes to Doug O'Neill and goes, "What's going on?" Doug O'Neill says, "I don't know." It's inconsistent. And maybe there's something going on that wasn't readily apparent in the tweet that I saw. Obviously, Twitter is limited to 280 characters. It can be a good source of news, it can be a horrible source of news. That's what jumped out at me. I know people at Santa Anita are aggressively lobbying the health board of Los Angeles County to restore operations. I have to imagine that the people at Golden Gate are going to follow suit with the Alameda County board in order to try to get operations going on their end. But as somebody who has recently become a gigantic fan of the Northern California Fair Circuit, gotta say I'm concerned.
Yeah, and the other thing, I failed to mention this, and for clarity's sake, Orange County has done nothing with Los Alamitos as of yet.
Yeah.
We're just hearing the rumors. We heard them last week, but we're really starting to hear them this week if you follow social media. So right now they're still planning a race card on Friday night. Probably going to be Friday by the time you guys see this. So it'll be interesting to see what plays out there. But the thing that's still crazy to me is from everything that we know of, and I think the board even a few days ago said this. At all of the California tracks, backside workers, everything, there has not been a single positive test for COVID-19. Gulfstream Park still ran after a jockey from their own colony tested positive for COVID-19. I think obviously Florida's in a different situation, and now Florida is finally in a stay-at-home order from their governor. But it's just funny, and I don't want this to become a political podcast. We're far from political people, but just something doesn't seem to make sense. And growing up on that fair circuit is in Northern California is why I'm into horse racing. So seeing that and seeing it impact those horses and those horsemen, and those horsemen have been in that Northern California circuit forever. We've got to hope for better things to come in the coming weeks, so those horsemen and those workers on the backside get what they need to keep these horses in the shape that they deserve to be in. It's really a sad story when you think about the horses and you think about those backstretch workers.
The Alameda County Fair is scheduled to start in about 2 months. This is a situation that is changing daily, sometimes more frequently than that even. So obviously we will do what we can to keep you posted. Some of the best reporters in the game will do what they can to keep you posted. Stay tuned. Hopefully we get through this sooner rather than later. That's the reason we started this podcast or this video series, whatever you want to call it, however you're consuming it. That's why we started this, because we're always looking for things to talk about. And right now, the big thing that we're talking about is a big card in Australia on Friday night, our time. It'll go off after midnight on the East Coast. About 10 o'clock Pacific time is when the Quaddie starts. It's the late pick four sequence. You can play it for as little as 20 cents. And this is a really good sequence. 3 Group 1s and a Group 3, races 7 through 10 of the championships. And JD, we both put together tickets. I really like this sequence, and I know you do too.
Yeah, and today, very late, they added for the North American pool another pick four sequence. So I would handicap the whole card. They've got a pick four, 4 to 7. The race 7 is the Australian Derby. So you've got overlap there in race 7, ends the early pick 4, starts the late pick 4. It's a great card. 9 of the 10 races are group company, Group 1, Group 2, or Group 3 stake races. The other thing that we should mention before we dive into this, the pools, I shouldn't say the pools, the purses have been impacted by racing and the state of racing. So there's been about a 50% purse reduction for the championships, both day 1 and day 2 at Royal Randwick. Still a great card, still some of the biggest races we'll see in the Australian horse racing schedule, and we're seeing all of the top jockeys, all the top trainers, and all the top horses starting on late Friday night here in the States, as you mentioned, Andrew. So we're going to go ahead and roll into what is the first race of the Quaddie that we're speaking of, and that's race 7, the Australian Derby. Again, explaining for those first time watching, and I won't explain this every time we put the field up, but they've got their saddle cloth numbers. Those are on the left. Those are the traditional numbers we're used to. And then the post position, the barrier numbers, are to the right. So Castle Vecchio, the favorite, as it happens to be in this race, will wear 1, but will come out of post 9. It takes some getting used to when you're getting ready for the race and you're like, oh, I've got all my money, I've singled the 1, and then you have to go back on your PPs and actually look what post the 1's coming out of if you're looking for an early start here. So we've got a field of 12 signed on. Again, this is for 3-year-olds, a derby, or a derby as they like to call it, at 2,400 meters, a mile and a half here, field of 12 signed on. And Andrew, really interesting field. We've got a lot of horses coming back off a very short rest and coming out of similar races. Rose Hill Gardens just finished their big meet. They actually washed off a couple days ago. They were going to try to run another day to close out their meet, but they had a little too much rain on the ground. So still a good field of horses, and I think what we're going to see through this whole pick 4 sequence is we see things entirely differently. So I'm going to go ahead and let you start here with your selections here in race number 7.
Sure. Race number 7, as mentioned, the Group 1 Australian Derby. 3-year-olds going a mile and a half. For me, the race goes through number 1 Castle Vecchio, who won a Group 1 race 2 weeks ago. Gee, horses running back on 2 weeks rest. Mile and a quarter, mile and a half. What is this? It's almost like horses are bred differently in other parts of the world. Let me show you my big shocked face. Anyway, Castle Vecchio to me is the class of this group. The longer he goes, the better his chances are going to be. He's not at his best going 7 furlongs or a mile. He won a Group 1 going a mile and a quarter. There's nothing to say he's not going to like going a mile and a half. However, there's a couple of other horses that I felt I needed to use. Number 2, Shadow Hero, did not break well last time out. For me, that's a throw out. He's won going very long in the past and has a very good closing kick, so I had to throw him in. I also have to use number 4, Sherwood Forest, who's going to be a bit of a price. I think you can toss the last race. He won a Group 1 at this distance, 2 back. I think he merits way more respect than the morning line is giving him. I'm going 3 deep in the Australian Derby, numbers 1, 2, and 4. JD, what do you like?
Yeah, so I Castle Vecchio and Shadow Hero are going to be 2 horses that you will also see on my Quaddie ticket. but I'm going a little differently. I think lone speed in this race is going to be in gate 3, and that's the 12 horse Sacramento. 2 wins in a second this in 2020. The second was the last out, and that's at a benchmark 76. This is a big step up in class, a huge step up in class, but a horse that is bred to go this distance and longer. Cheap lone speed at Randwick, you got to take a shot. It's one of those things where you're going to kick yourself if you don't have it, because I think this horse is going to be in the lead for 3/4 of the race, and I tend on my tickets if they're a long shot and they're going to be the first name out of the announcer's mouth for 3/4 of the race in case they get super brave and can continue on. I would feel like an idiot if I didn't have Sacramento on my ticket. The top pick, however, is going to be the horse that I think is going to slot in just behind Sacramento, and that's the 6 Quick Thinker. Draws barrier 6, so this is an easy one. 6 will jump out of 6. Stretches out to 1.5 miles for the first time, but really love the sire here. So You Think. New Zealand Hall of Famer, one of the most interesting horses you'll see. Won a lot at 1.25 miles, finished third in the Melbourne Cup to American in 2010. Also, you might remember So You Think as a U.S. racing fan, because So You Think ran in the 2011 Breeders' Club Classic, finishing 5th, and was actually the 3rd selection in that race on the betting public by the betting public. That was the year Drosselmeyer won, of course. And that was So You Think running as a 5-year-old. So just an interesting pedigree for an Australian-bred horse to see those lines with a strong New Zealand horse who ran in the States, ran in England, ran all over the world. Strong effort in the Tulloch Stakes for Quick Thinker. That's my top pick. Other horses, I think there's 2 more you've got to throw in there. The 3 Warning had a big closing kick first part of the year. Including winning the Victoria Derby, which is the longest Derby on the 3-year-old trail at 1 mile and 9/16. Has not had that speed to close into. I think Sacramento's the speed to close into. I think that's a logical choice. And then the 8 Chains of Honor really was the it horse, beginning the 3-year-old campaign, won the Mullins Grand Prix at Eagle Farm wire to wire, but has not shown speed since and has had back-to-back really disappointing efforts. We'll see if there's a bounce back here. And the other thing to keep in mind is I really think Chains of Honor is going to be a really long shot. Sacramento is going to be a really long shot. With these 20-cent 20-cent base wager, you can throw a couple of these horses in and not have it break the bankroll. So 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, and 12 for me in race number 7. So we'll move on to the TJ Smith Stakes, which is race number 8, and we'll take a look at the field quickly here as we've got a field of 13 signed on, Andrew.
Yep, a field of 13, and number 1 Nature Strip will undoubtedly be one of the favorites. I think he's a very logical betting favorite, but I'm going to take a stand. I'm going to bet against Nature Strip in here. I understand that he won a Group 1 last time out, but there's a lot of early speed in this race. He stretches out from 5 furlongs to 6 furlongs. He's won at 6 furlongs before, but I don't think he sits the trip that he wants here. There's a lot of early speed, and with that, I am going to go 6 deep on my ticket without using Nature Strip. You mentioned the ability to throw in some bigger prices, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'll go one by one because this was a very tough race to have a top pick in, but my top selection is number 9 Exceedance, who goes 3rd off the layoff and has some big races back in 2019. Maybe Exceedance's best races are long gone, but channeling that form, I think, has a shot, and I'm going to use him for sure. Also going to use a bunch of others, as you can see over there. Number 2, Parada, goes 2nd off the layoff and should get plenty of pace to run at, as I mentioned. Number 3, Santa Ana Lane, goes 2nd off the layoff, another closer. Number 4, Red Zell, has a ton of back class. He won the Everest back in 2018 and could get first run sitting just off the speed. Number 7, Bivouac, is a classy horse who has early speed but does not need the lead in order to run well. That's another that could get first run. And I'm also going to use number 13, Loving Gabby, who won a Group 1 at this distance last time out. So I will go 6 deep in here, trying to beat Nature Strip, horses 2, 3, 4, 7, 9, and 13. And who knows, maybe we get a price on number 9 Exceedance to get a little bit of win value there in case that one steps up and gets the job done. 60 for me. JD, as you've mentioned, you see this race and a bunch of others in this sequence very, very differently.
Yeah, I look at Nature Strip, the one drawing barrier one. That's the key thing here. Speed drawing the barrier in Australian racing is a huge advantage. So
That
really,
scares me.
James McDonald probably the hottest jockey in Australia right now, especially on the lead, and won a barrier trial on Monday against Santa Ana Lane and Red Zell. And obviously the challenge stakes at Randwick March 7th. Go back and watch that replay. That's a classy horse that could have won by a lot more. I like Nature Strip as my top pick. If anybody is going to catch Nature Strip late, it's going to be one of Australia's favorite horses, Santa Ana Lane, the 3. Second in the Everest 3 starts ago. Nature Strip, 6 furlongs. That's a question. Nature Strip has won at 6 furlongs, but most of the group company and the best races for Nature Strip have been at 5 and 5.5 furlongs. So we'll see if Nature Strip can cover the 1,200 meters. But I'm just keeping it simple there. 1 and 3 in race number 8, Andrew. Leading off into race number 9, Doncaster Mile. I don't know where you even can begin in this race. It's such a packed field. As we look at the field right now. And don't let your eyes deceive you here. I'm going to be scrolling through many a horse here as we've got 20 signed on with with 24 total, 4 also eligibles in this race. You're going to see Chris Waller's name a whole bunch as he's training. I believe if all of his horses draw in, he's got 9 in this race for the Australian Super Trainer. Really a classy field. This is a 3-year-old and up race, but you're going to see that there's 3 3-year-olds in the race this year, and I think that's kind of the key to this race. You look at the history of this race, which goes all the way back into the mid-1800s, and a 3-year-old has won 32 times, Andrew, 3 times in the last 10 years, and last year's winner, Brutal, was a 3-year-old. So I'm looking at the 3-year-olds as the key in this race, but I'm still getting a little bit of coverage as well. And a 3-year-old's actually not my top pick. My top pick is going to be 13 Quackerjack. Again, speed on the rail. I think you have to include this one. Last time the gelding ran a mile. It was a win at the Group 2 Violers Stake at Randwick. I think really Quackerjack will be in the lead, and it'll be someone's job to catch the gelding. Conti Partiro. Coming off of a big win. It was a great move by Tim Clark at the Coolmore Classic. Another one you need to look up on YouTube. Just a great ride, taking over with about 600 meters to go, and just could have won by as much as the horse wanted to. This is a U.S. bred horse. And I want to go over the pedigree real quick because we're trying to draw the U.S. fan interest into Australian racing. So Fasig Timpton November sale 2018. This horse sold for $575,000. The mare sire is Scat Daddy. Everybody knows Scat Daddy. 2006 Fountain of Youth, Florida Derby. Dam is Temple Street. Maybe not a dam that rolls off the mind of everybody, but grade 1 placed, second in the Humana Distaff, and third in the Fleur de Lis as a 5-year-old back in 2009. And the dam sire, it's the Godolphin Dubai Cup world champion that we all know and love, Street Cry. So this is a great pedigree and a great pedigree for some versatility. Right now, I think this is a speed horse that needs to be on the speed, and we're going to see that right back on Quackerjack and see if Tim Clark can find that middle move again. The 3-year-olds in this race are the other 3 horses that I have in here, which are the 8 Super Seth, the 19 Brandenburg, and the 20 Prince Fawaz. I really think the 19 and the 20 I like a little more than the 8 because they get such a huge weight break in this race. They get over 20 pounds if you convert to U.S. Over some of the other horses in this race. Brandenburg, my top selection of those, actually lost a shoe last time out, and actually 2 times ago. Sorry, was in the Randwick Guineas. Ran third in a major race in Australia as a 3-year-old, losing a shoe almost at the start. I mean, this is such a great horse. Came back a little bit of a disappointing effort in the George Ryder, which is a race that we talked about on Golden Slipper Day a few weeks back on this podcast. So Brandenburg and then Prince Fawa and Super Seth, the other two 3-year-olds, I think have big shots in this race. So I'm going 5 deep, 8, 11, 13, 19, and 20, Andrew.
Okay, so I don't have your top pick on my ticket, but I do have the other four horses that you used. I went six deep in here. I wouldn't be shocked if anybody looking at this ticket wants to go deeper. And if you've got multiple singles on your ticket, as stupid as it sounds, hitting the all button, given the 20-cent variable and the fact that a short price isn't going to materialize in this field most likely, that might not be the worst idea in the world. I'll go one at a time here. Number 3, Homesman, goes second off a layoff, gets a terrible draw. He'll break from barrier 22 as the number 3 horse, but I think Homesman may very well be the main speed in here. So I like Homesman for the same reason you like your top pick. There's not a lot of early speed in this race, especially given the field size. Homesman hit me as a must-use. Maybe he breaks quickly and clears, gets an easy trip. We'll see. Number 8, Super Seth, had a rough trip last time out. Might get a perfect trip on or near a slow early pace. You mentioned Conte Partiro, a name that some American fans will recognize. Big win last time out. Number 17, Shared Ambition, is one of many in here, trained by Chris Waller. Takes a step up in class to be sure, but has won 6 of 8 starts. Certainly worth a shot in here, given his prior resume. So 6 for 8. If he's 7 for 9, we'll move on. And I'll also use numbers 19 and 20, as you mentioned, Brandenburg and Prince Fawaz, both getting a lot of weight. Both will likely be pretty big prices at the betting windows. Of these races, this is the one where it seems like we've got the most in common here. I'm going 6 deep, 3, 8, 11, 17, 19, and 20. And if we're alive to race number 10, hopefully it's with a couple of prices along the way.
Yeah, Andrew, and you mentioned hitting the all button, and I have just – we'll take a slight pause before leg 4 here. I have a theory. If you can find a single in a quaddie in Australia, I always try to make the toughest leg an all race, an all button race, because you do have the coverage, and you can play a U.S. ticket, and you're thinking, oh, it's a 20-cent denomination. It's not going to pay out like a 50-cent pick 4 does in the States. It does. 100% it does. I hit a pretty nice pick 4, if you follow me on Twitter, last week for about $660 on a I believe it was a $48 ticket that had coverage all over the map, and we just hit. I mean, I think the longest shot on the board we hit was a 5th betting choice, and that still paid out on a 20-cent denomination. So,
nice, JD.
So you've got to try that, and you've got to do it. Now, the PJ Bell Stakes, I think this is where we see things the most differently on the evening here. The 1,200-meter race for 3-year-old fillies with a field of now 14, as the only early scratch that we have in the sequence is in this race again. There'll be some more scratches tomorrow leading up to post time. So again, if some of our horses scratch, we'll update tickets on Twitter. But a field of 15 started. The 14, Daphne Jean, has scratched out of this, making it a field of 14. Dazzling Damsel, the last one, the 15 there for with Adam Hieronymus aboard, who just won his first Group 1 last week at Rose Hill. So a very interesting field in the PJ Bell Stakes, and I'm going to lead off here. And really, I think you've got to look at Kamichi, not followed up from what we saw as a 2-year-old. That was the Golden Slipper winner last year. Just has not produced that same amount, and really has been a different horse, just been a lagging trailer so far as a 3-year-old. Gonna give her one last chance here. It's been the normal speed, and then it's just been nothing. It's just been, fade into oblivion. Held on for third once so far in the 3-year-old sequence, but really just a different horse. Has the carriage, looks exactly the same. Probably will be the pick of the yard, because she always seems to be from the people on hand that have a good chance to look at the horses. Always looks good. Last chance for me on here. Rubisaki is going to be probably odds on here and have to include on the ticket the 2. She's won 4 straight undefeated as a 3-year-old. Basically has the opposite that we've seen from Kamichi. Cutting back to 1,200, but that's comfortable. She's 3 for 4 lifetime at the distance. It's going to be really interesting to see the pace scenario again. We're going to expect Kamichi to come out firing. Rubisaki needs all the help from a pace advantage. She's going to come from the clouds. My top selection is the 7, Heart of Oak. And really, if you followed any of the Australian press, any of the prognosticators, punters, as you will on Twitter, this has been the wise guy horse of the week. And it's been just steadily dropping in price, obviously, with not with the different styles of wagering that Australia has. You can bet on the race, a week ahead of time, basically. You can bet on the race before the race is drawn. So you've got a lot of options there, and it's just been a steady decline. So blinkers on for Heart of Oak in the PJ Bell Stakes. Key race is 2 back. Obviously, last time out in the Surround Stakes, finished 8th. Just crossed that one out. Didn't look comfortable at any point. Didn't like the soft going. I think it'll be a little firmer ground. Still been some rain this week, but a little firmer ground. Think she'll like that. But you look at that benchmark 70 that she ran at Warwick Farm 2 back. Defeated Positive Peace. That is a race to go back and watch, and then watch subsequently what Positive Peace has done. Positive Peace has won 5 straight races, including the Group 2 Emancipation Stakes. And that was at Rose Hill last week, so really tough company there. I think this horse has only finished out of the money once. It was that 8th place effort. I chuck it out, and I'll take a chance making my top selection somebody that will be double-digit odds. So I'm 1, 2, 7 in the final leg of the Quaddie. And I think, Andrew, you see this a little more simply than I do, to say the least.
Hey, JD, you remember what happened last week in the Florida Derby?
I do.
Tiz the Law was just playing the better horse.
Yeah.
I think we've got a similar situation here in the PJ Bell. I think number 2, Rubisaki, simply put, is the class of this field. She's 4 for her last 4, big edge on figures, and she is strictly the one to beat. Understanding that she will come from out of the clouds is one thing, but she could regress a couple of points, and I think still win this pretty handily. To me, she's just the best horse in the race. I respect a couple of others that you mentioned, and there are reasons to potentially like a couple of others if you're looking for value, but Rubisaki just hits me as a layover in this field, and she is a single for me here in the Quaddie. I went a little bit deeper in legs 2 and 3. I'm just trying to get to Rubisaki, and hopefully we can extract some value out of that runner by getting a price or 2 or maybe 3 home before that one. Rubisaki is my single. She's my best bet of the card. Pretty simple. If she doesn't win, I lose. So, JD, if you want to put your tickets up here, I feel as though there is a situation in which we could both hit. And indeed there is. It's just a matter of us having vastly different top selections in each of these races. So if you're looking to play a ticket for really cheap, take the tickets that we've got, put the tickets in common together, and you wind up with a pretty cheap ticket that, who knows, maybe it'll get you a little bit of fun over the course of your Friday evening at a time where fun on Friday evenings has been much, much, much harder to find.
Yeah, this is going to be exciting, and I think this is going to be back to the excitement we always saw with Winks running on Friday nights. I think we're going to have a similar feel we did last time, but really, people in the U.S. have been picking up Australian racing and seeing how good of a product it is. It's one of the best products out there, and it's why I focused on it for many, many years. Not that I don't follow the U.S. horse racing scene, not that I don't place wagers and, big and small. I've got tracks that I follow just like anybody else, but really I dive into Australia. There's all the resources you need. In most cases, they're free. Sky Racing World's a great resource, and they're, do a great job of distributing the feeds, getting all the information. They even do something we rely on each week is they take the Australian forms, which look nothing like what we see as a race form in North America, and they actually make a North American version past performance list that we're able to do. So, hats off to them. And we were honestly delayed a day from recording this podcast because we were waiting for it to come out, and they apologized to us because they knew we were waiting. Like, we could have done this without it, but I think, just for myself and Andrew double checking, and we grew up reading American style past performances, it makes things a lot better. So a big card at Royal Randwick. Again, this is one of those big, think of this as like the Breeders' Cup, because essentially it is. It's a 2-day festival. It's normally people dressed to the nines. It's celebrities. It's, all the food and circumstance and pomp and circumstance you get at a Breeders' Cup. This is the Australian version of it, and it's sad that it's going to take place without fans, but we're just happy that it's taking place at all, Andrew.
For sure, and there are a lot of really good wagering opportunities. This will be Australia A in your ADW of choice. Several Australia tracks running on Friday and Saturday. Again, Sky Racing World has those past performances, and we are indebted to them for providing that service. Some fun races to handicap, and this Quaddie could pay stacks if you hit it. So, JD, what's left? I mean, I feel like it's a situation where racetracks, we don't know where they're going to run. We don't know what's going on in the next couple of weeks and months around the landscape. And we were planning this out because we like having 3 acts as part of this story. And it's tough finding a third act.
Yeah, unfortunately, really, I'll take an aside here and give you why we do the 3-act play here. And it's because Eric Bischoff on his podcast has just reamed that over and over in my head, that every wrestling storyline, every show needs to have 3 acts. So that's why we came up with 3 acts. And I mainly mentioned that to pop Andrew a little bit, to use a wrestling term.
It worked.
It is what it is. I think it's a good storytelling thing. So I came into tonight thinking, okay, what sports takes are left? And I'm friends with the people over at America's Best Racing. I think they do a great job. They had a kind of happy hour thing tonight, and they mainly talked about sports and not horse racing, which, again, they had some good guests from ESPN. I mean, it was a good opportunity. But I heard sports takes, and my mind just turned off. I feel like I've heard every sports take. But I come to find that Andrew Champagne has what may be the last hot sports take you're going to hear. And I really hope it's worth it, because I have no idea what it is, and I set you up, Andrew.
Boy, that's a killer introduction. Okay, I've actually been toying with this idea for a little bit, and I've been putting on my Karnak the Magnificent hat. I really wish I had props. That might need to be next time. I might need to invest in a prop bag like Carrot Top in a Vegas show. But anyway, I've been thinking about this a little bit, and there is so much speculation out there about when the baseball season will resume, if there is a baseball season. That's the big caveat. Obviously, if health officials determine that it's not safe to have a baseball season, this goes up in smoke. But I've got a great idea. How about when baseball is ready to come back, we kickstart it with the Home Run Derby in early July. We find representatives from each team. We set up a bracket style to really get things going. It can be like the old show that ESPN Classic reran for a while. Just put a whole bunch of people in a stadium setting, have everybody laughing at how far they can hit it, bring in some of the stars of the game, play an all-star game if you want. That's not a must, and how we would even begin to select those people, I don't know. Do that 4th of July weekend. You do that 4th of July weekend, you start a shortened season going from the beginning of July through September. You do the playoffs in October. It's not perfect. None of these solutions that anyone is going to come up with are perfect. Scott Boras has come up with this ridiculous idea of a 162-game season, which, oh, by the way, benefits him because he gets his agent's commission from all of the major deals that he's negotiated. So you sort of have to take that with a grain of salt. But that, I believe, makes the best of a bad situation, because you get it back with an event that a lot of people really like. The saying chicks dig the long ball winds up being a good one. And it's a case where everybody can come together, celebrate the fact that baseball is back with one of the most basic things in the world. Let's see how many home runs your best hitter can hit. That would draw a lot of ratings. It would draw a lot of public interest. And then you kickstart a season that's, maybe 60 games, just to pick a round number. You do a 60-game season. You do a playoff. You do the World Series. It's not perfect. There are going to be what ifs. A team that maybe wins 100 games in a 162-game regular season, maybe they hit a bad stretch, they go 30-30 and miss the playoffs. Nobody's going to be happy. and rather, there's no situation where everyone is going to be happy with a solution. Everybody's going to have to do some give and take. But ultimately, the more I think about that, the more I like the idea. And when you mentioned what sports takes are left, that's what came to the forefront. Hopefully, it was good enough.
To play devil's advocate.
Go ahead.
1 second.
Sure.
So we're going to take players that will have a very truncated preparation period to get back into shape, and you want the best players on each team to swing as hard as humanly possible for multiple rounds and hope they don't injure themselves.
Cecil Fielder made a career out of that.
I mean,
that guy was conservatively listed at 300 pounds. It didn't affect his swing at all. And ultimately, this is something that I feel it's a bullet that needs to be bit. And again, it's not a solution that's going to placate everybody, but you give people reps in a batting cage. These are power hitters anyway. And if the players aren't taking care of themselves, at this point, that's on them. They're grown adults. They can make their own choices about what to eat and how to prepare in the off season. I get what you're saying. I understand it. And the last thing we need to see is, heaven forbid, Mike Trout puts on 100 pounds and comes walking up to a batting cage like Fat Albert. But it's a case where I feel like that would be a nice adrenaline boost for a nation that misses sports, misses the national pastime. And if you get somebody making a run like Josh Hamilton did in the old Yankee Stadium at the All-Star game before they closed that down, I see you smiling. You'd think that's pretty cool. I think that would be a really nice way to bring sports back.
Yeah, but you aged yourself, Andrew. You didn't need to say Cecil Fielder. You could have said Prince Fielder, and it would the same would have applied.
I sprained my shoulder pulling that back. I need an adjustment at the chiropractic school I work at. Oh, wait, shelter in place. Dang it!
And you're in I think basically the first place in the country that had shelter in place. So
yes.
you're more experienced. You're a veteran of it. Any veteran advice you can give the fine folks out there for those in Florida that may have just gotten it for the first time, Georgia, those sorts of states as we sign off?
Okay, yes. First of all, credit to the leaders in the Bay Area. They were one of the first in the country to realize, okay, this is a problem. We need to start locking things down. That aside, onto the silly stuff. I have become an expert on the art of frozen pizza taste testing. Just don't eat Devour. Devour it's not good. It basically tastes like a brick. Even as frozen pizza goes, it's not very good. DiGiorno's pizzeria lineup, not bad. If you have a Safeway, though, the Safeway selects margarita pizza. It's not bad. Less than 1,000 calories for a full pizza. So if you're trying to watch your figure, that's as good a choice as any, and that's the one that I would recommend. But it's a case up here where even the frozen pizza is slim pickings because people are starting to hoard that like toilet paper.
Only in a pandemic can you and Dave Portnoy just seem to come together.
God!
Because he's been doing frozen pizza reviews for the last few weeks to the point where all the companies are sending him frozen pizzas. My personal favorite, Home Run Inn, they sent him a pizza oven to make his frozen pizza in. So
I don't want to be Dave Portnoy. Dave Portnoy's an overgrown frat dude. I don't want to be him. No. And you know what? Just for that, I'm so angry with you. I can't bring myself to sign off. You do it. I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to stew. I'm going to be very, very upset with you. And by this time next week, I am going to find a way to deliver proper retribution.
I can't wait because I don't think there's anything you can do because that's your number one hot button issue. And I just pressed it. And I'm very happy. But you can follow Andrew on Twitter at Andrew Champagne. Great follow on Twitter. He's been doing a lot of podcasting in the wrestling world and just came from a marathon session doing that. So I appreciate his professionalism as always, despite the tirade. We appreciate it, Andrew. You can follow me on Twitter at Horse Tickets. This is Champagne and JD, and we hope you have fun on Friday night watching the races at Royal Randwick. We'll be tweeting along, and again, any scratches, we'll have updated tickets for you. And I started this with the Florida Derby Day, and I thought it was huge for us. If we miss our ticket, there's a pick 3 right after. Pick 3's of shame. I missed the pick 6, then I missed the pick 4, so then I had a pick 3 of super shame. We're willing to shame ourselves. We're not touts, but we're doing our best to handicap this for you, give you some different angles. We're not expecting you to play our tickets as they lie. Just some opinions that you may not have, may add a horse, may subtract a horse, depending on what we say. And that's what we're here for. Thanks, Andrew. I hope you're calmed down now and we can sign off properly here.
Don't go to the beaches.
That's the catchphrase. Have a good night, everybody.